guys, welcome back on the channel. On today's video we're going to have a flip through and a short review of Baron Wars, a medieval skirmish game. I started a new project with the Baron Wars armies. We're going to obviously do mechanics as I use most of the rules I'm using, but currently let's do the flip through. I don't want to do mechanics with 100 years war figures. I don't feel comfortable. Historically accuracy obviously, and it doesn't look good, so let's wait for the armies to be finished and we'll do a lot of mechanics and rules explanation, but currently let's see what's happening with the rules. So this is a printed copy of the PDF, it's not the actual book. This is what I like usually to get printed PDFs. So we start with the Baron Wars. This is written by Andy Holiday, and you start with explanation of the rules, very nice graphics, explanation of the contents, introduction, Baron Wars rules introduction here, very nice sketches. This is William Marshall. And then you start with what do you need to play. It's played with D10 dice and D6 dice, and obviously you have tokens to perform actions that are provided by the book, and also you can buy it, I think, from the Futsal Miniatures site. Again, general principles, most rules are like this. This is from me, so I forgot to remove them when I went to print. And then major examples of rolling, modifying dice rolls, roll-offs, lines of sight, so general ideas. Now, part of the rules I'm very interested in, I like, is the line of sight, and that has to do with hindered shots or hindered charges. So if somebody is within your line of sight, you cannot shoot, obviously, and you cannot charge. But if he is partially in, you can attack or shoot or charge hindered with negative modifiers. I like this idea of a hindered charge because of friendly troops. Also, if you shoot, there is a die roll that can harm your own troops in shooting. So it's quite interesting. Now the rules I find very interesting. I haven't playtested them yet, but I think they have a uniqueness, and I think they can be also, I like bigger battles. They can also accommodate larger battles. So we continue to explaining about groups, general ideas. This is the coherency rule, that your units have to be within 2 inches from the center unit in order to be coherent. Otherwise you fight with negative modifiers. In the housekeeping phase you can sort it out. And then you're talking about the attributes. Let's go here. So you have the attributes of your units is based on, as you can see here, movement, attack, defense, morale, and actions. These are the actions you can take. You can take one action per phase unless a commander gives you an action, so you can take 2 actions, but in order to take 2 actions you have to take a morale test, and then you become wary. Very nice rule. Attacks obviously is what you will roll with modifiers, and defense, morale is the same, and movement 6 inches, but you can run also, and it's quite interesting rule that I haven't found in many rule sets. But when you run, you move twice your distance, but you become tired, wary. So you have, say, here are some examples of attributes and how these attributes work. And then he talks to you about the game round, and the game round is the most important part. The game round is the initial phase, the compulsory action phase, the new action phase, and the housekeeping phase. So what's the initial phase? The initial phase is basically when you roll to see who gets initiative. Compulsory action phase is when you actually have all your uncontrolled troops, like for example shaken or broken, that you have to control. Then new action phase is when you allocate actions to your troops, and then housekeeping phase is the tidying up the phases. So you're talking about leaders' morale dice, compulsory action phase, and there is the housekeeping phase. It explains to you the phases in general here. Now in housekeeping phase you have a morale die that, depending on your units have been removed, you add or remove score, but at the same time in every phase you reduce the morale dice. The higher the morale dice is, obviously the worse. You start with 0, there's no morale dice, but then when you are getting injuries and removing miniatures, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with the top. But during housekeeping phase you can remove it, unless of course you're wary, so you have to pass a morale test. If you're shocked, you cannot change it unless you rally. Broken troops can reduce morale dice. So this dice goes up and down, and it affects, obviously, positively or negatively, your situation. Here we have the tokens where you perform an action as an active player and your opponent performs a reaction. So you can move, you can fight a combat, you can defend. That's a very nice, interesting rule. Get a command action, one command action, and some abilities that part of the army list. And here you can have reactions from your opponent, so your opponent can fight back, or he can defend. That's a very nice rule. I like it that you can decide not to attack back and perform like a shield wall if you have shields and get positive modifiers in defense. That's a strategy. Get command points as well and get abilities as well. Now, the compulsory actions, as I told you before, is regarding broken, shocked, and psychology. If you fear some troops or if you're a fanatic, you have some actions that you have to perform. Broken troops, you have to, in the initial phase, not initial phase, in the uncontrolled units phase, you have to do a morale test to avoid continue run. Shock troops indicates a group that has nothing to do and they try to recover from morale. The broken troops are running. So here it explains to you what the shock troops are and what broken troops are. Excuse me about this highlight. And here shows you how you can rally. You can rally also using the commander's ability if he is within 6 inches, if I'm not mistaken. But if you have a banner, this bannerman, this command distance doubles. So it shows you how the units run. They run while they're broken. And here you talk about how units become wary by performing more than 2 actions and how you rally them. The worry effect, as I told you, every situation has a negative modifier. And now he receives, basically a unit receives a -1 in all dice while it's worried. And then he's talking about movement and how you move. Quite simple. There's nothing complicated here. Although I like this change of let's say, of facing and movement in a unit. And then it's quite interesting rules about climbing and about moving into terrain, but quite straightforward. Nothing. Here is explaining the defense action. Nothing strange. Now here in combat, very interesting, obviously your combat attack plays an important role, plus modifiers, line of sight. Now the defender has the ability to defend, as I show you, as an action, or to attack back. Here is all the information about combat, and advice chart shows you how it works. Line of sight again. And then obviously here we're talking about the morale die. The morale die of each unit is subtracted from the defense morale die and the attacker, and the result is giving you the effect. So if, for example, let's see an example here. Before any attack dice are rolled, in anger, subtract the current score shown in the attacker's morale dice from the score in the defender's morale dice. Cross-reference in the difference morale and apply the attack modifier from the table below. So here is as I told you, whenever you lose a unit, whenever you lose a miniature from a unit, you add 1 to your morale die, and then you compare, subtracting, as I told you, and you get the result. Because you're high morale, you have maybe better dice. You have lower morale, you have minus. So it's quite interesting rule. Here's talking about fails charge. I like the idea that you can overcharge, and you need to roll a die to see if you succeed. It's a good idea. And I like the idea here about pushbacks. We'll talk about pushbacks a bit later. You have a defense roll here, as you said, if you want to defend, a defensive reaction, and then you can fight back as a reaction that is given by the commander. But if you fail, you have a shield roll, if you have shields. Now, there is a special rule. If your opponent scores 0, this is a critical hit. You cannot defend it unless you score back a 0. If you defend with a 1, you cannot use your defense, your shield defense roll, your shield roll. But all the other hits, you can defend. I'm not going to go into detail about this. It just shows you that the 0 is a very strong hit on a D10 dice, and it's difficult to be defended unless you also roll a 0 as a defender. And a 1 is a very weak dice, weak response that cannot be defended. It's a critical. You've been hit. So, but we'll see this in the mechanics. Now continue, but you send fire and shooting, all this part of the rules, and then the morale effect, forced off the table, forced back. How you force back? If you lose the battle, you move 1 inch plus 1 inch for every miniature. It's quite a good idea, and then your opponents follow up to 1 inch. I would like to be a continuous, but this is something you can do. It doesn't really need a lot of house rules here, but you can do it. Here is terrain and combat. Very beautiful graphics. And here we go to morale. Explains you exactly when do you need to roll for morale, and when you're losing, obviously. You have a morale, and obviously when you roll, you have to roll higher than the morale of your warriors. Losing community total 20% casualties, respond in an order action. So when you're given an order from your commander, you have to roll to see if you accept it. Actions for some specific abilities, psychology, rally when broken, rally when shocked, improve current morale. You can do this, obviously. Losing commander, all these are situations where you need to roll for morale. And that's a lot of examples. Also, when you lose a group, the only time your commander's retinue loses his morale, it's when he loses a group. Okay. So here's building your retinue. I like very much this rules because it has so many options that you can use. You can modify your troops according to your strategy. It reminds me a little bit of Soul Point, but a lot more options. I like there is a lot of weapons here, a lot of armor that give you positive modifiers. They reduce your speed. It's really, really very well thought of, and I like this ability for you to really accommodate the troops as you like. Now, group size, there is no group size limit, obviously, but the 2 inch, obviously, cohesion, let's say, circumference, obviously, restricts you a bit. And here you have all the information about how you can build a retinue and equipment. Really, really, really interesting and really enjoyable. I mean, it's one of the most enjoyable things to make retinues in this rule set, and crossbowman. And you have monks that I love, military monks, all this. And here, when you finish with your armies, you go to command groups and explains you how you create your commander and command group. I love this rule of a warhorse. It gives you also an extra hit to your commanders. And the overcharge, I love the overcharge rule with the warhorse. If you have a warhorse, all these informations are brilliant. If you have a warhorse, here is a knight commander generator, so they can generate commanders for you. If you have a warhorse and you push back your opponent, you are subject to overcharge. So you just basically run through your opponent, gallop through, and you move from the back. It's a really very interesting one, and then you have to rein in the horses. Here is command action distances. So if you have a banner, as you see here, is 12 inches, pennant 9 inches, and a normal commander 6 inches. Here is another great part of the rules, equipment and the positive and negative modifiers you're getting, and obviously the shield rolls, as I'll explain to you afterwards. When you roll for defense and some hits are not defended, and if you have a shield, you have a second chance by using shield rolls, and depending what shields you have, you defend. A medium shield needs a +8, a small shield a +9, a large shield a +7. It's a really, really interesting rule, I think, really interesting concept. Here you're talking about the horses, what I was telling you about horse's ability, about this overcharge, not overrun, excuse me, but this overcharge and how you rein in the horses. And obviously here is the bodied horses, the attributes and the abilities they give you. And they give you a -1 in defense, so that basically means if you have a 6, you roll a 5, but at the same time, you are subject to overcharge. And then there are other abilities that they are part of your commanders. Some are passive, some are active, and some are group. So something is active, it means that you have to use an action. If it's passive, it means that it's working. For example, it's continuous, you don't need an action. And here's obviously the points. This is really explains to you the abilities here, obviously. This is a brilliant part. I mean, the author obviously has sat down and thought of some really, really interesting abilities, obviously, that I was really impressed. Then you have historical characters where they're giving you their attributes. For example, King John of England. Here, William Marshall. Here you have Prince Louis of France. You have Robert Fitzwalter, that's my commander for my retinues, and you have Hubert de Burgh, this is the other commander. It shows you here everything. This is very helpful. It shows you all the attributes and the stories about William Marshall. Here is choosing your scenario. There's 15 scenarios, very interesting, and shows how they are laid down. And here explains to you the scenarios and how they work, and here talks to you about terrain and battlefield, and inside how rules work inside houses, forests, etc. And this glossary explains to you every term and what overcharge means. And here are the tokens that you can use. You cut them and you use them. So here is your moving, here is your charging, here is a command action. This is a special rule that you can use, the ones we showed before. Defense action if you want, and this is broken or shaken, I don't remember. And obviously you have an army roster list here. At the end you have an index, and at the end here I put, for me, this is where the book ends, but here I have some, these are very interesting. Beginner's retinue 500 points. These are downloaded from the Futso site, where it has retinues ready for you. If you want any help. So I downloaded this to have it as a reference. So, Baron Wars. I have to say I'm very intrigued by the rules, quite impressed. Obviously I have to do my workshop with mechanics, but the idea of the actions and the defense actions and how things work. I like the idea that I haven't mentioned you is that not all miniatures are fighting. The first rank is fighting, and miniatures who are 1 inch from the first rank. So you have a big unit, so that's why I'm telling you this rule micromanages, but very interestingly, the rules. If you have a unit of 12, maybe 6 will fight. And that's interesting because the whole unit cannot be wiped out. If you remove 3 or 4, more will come up. I like this idea. I haven't seen it before because generally rules have a more general concept, but I haven't seen this before, but I really liked it that partially your armies are fighting. So I'm very interested in doing workshop for these rules. They seem to work quite well. I think they're very good. They're really good rule set, but again, I have to work on them. I have to start my mechanics, but this is when my armies are ready. So very good rule set, I think, with very interesting concept, not difficult to understand. I like this possibility of modifying and fixing your armies according to your requirements. So many things there to make the armies and the commanders to your own taste and requirements. And hopefully we'll have a video soon with mechanics as soon as the first, let's say, 10-15 miniatures of my armies are ready. Anyway, guys, I wish you Merry Christmas. The Christmas Scottish Army showcases will be starting soon. Let's see it here. I have to remove them from here, and then I will showcase them to you one by one, and I hope you will enjoy them. Just give me, probably I will do this tomorrow. But again, a very good rule set that I enjoyed very much reading, but again, we have to go to the table to see how things work. But in general, very, very good concepts. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching, and bye-bye.